For Facebook, press 1. For Instagram, press 2. For Oculus, press 3.
Thanks for calling Instagram. How can I help you?
I'd like to request an access token.
What permissions would you like?
Just give me all the permissions.
Your access token is lowercase j, uppercase U, uppercase U, Z, uppercase Z, R, R, D, S, 23, T, Z, B, Q, B, 3, N, G, N. For security reasons, we cannot repeat an access token.
What? Bubbles, why is this already getting an access token?
What's up, everyone? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Instagram Graph API PHP SDK to get and debug access tokens. And we're going to begin over on GitHub in our Instagram Graph API PHP SDK repository. Check the code out, the link will be in the description. We're going to head over to the wiki, and we're going to check out our access token endpoints. The first step in getting an access token for a user is to have them log in with Facebook. So we need to prompt them with a login with Facebook link on our page. This link is made up of our app ID, our app secret, our redirectory, and a list of permissions we want for the access token. So we're going to copy this little snippet right here, and we're going to paste that in Sublime Text. So now we have to fill in the variables here. Here we have our app ID and our app secret. Now you can get those things by going to your Facebook app, under the settings basic, copy your app ID, copy your app secret, and those get placed right in here. Next, we have our redirectory. This is where Facebook will send the user after they log in with Facebook and grant our app all the permissions we requested. Now, the redirectory you specify in the code must also be entered here under Facebook Login, Settings, Valid OAuth Redirectories. Here you see I have my localhost sandbox igtest.php file. This is the URL that Facebook will redirect the user to once they log in. So I'm going to paste that here for my redirectory. Then we have our permissions array. This is a list of the permissions that you need for the endpoint that you're hitting. So based on what you're trying to do, you might not need some of these, but I'm just going to request all of them for this tutorial. Then we create our Facebook login with the config that we specified. And then down here, we call get login dialog URL, which is going to generate the login URL for the Facebook dialog for our app. So when the user clicks on it, they'll be taken to Facebook, they'll log in with Facebook, and then they'll be redirected back to our redirectory right here. All right, so let's test this out. Over here in my Facebook dashboard, I have created a test user that we'll be using for this tutorial. I'm going to log in with this test user. And now I'm logged in as my test user to Facebook. Now if I hit the igtest.php file, you see our link here that's been generated, and we're going to go ahead and click it. You see what pops up here is our test app is requesting access, and we're going to continue. Then it's telling us what it's requesting access for. Click continue again. Now we should be redirected back to our igtest.php file, and Facebook has appended on this code variable. Now this code is what we're going to use to exchange for an access token. Now if there's a code in the URL, we want to try to exchange that code for an access token. So we're going to check for a code in the URL. And if it is set, we will try to exchange it. Otherwise, we're going to display out our login with Facebook link. Now we can get our access token from code. So we're going to copy our code snippet right here. I'm going to paste that right here inside of our if, because now we have a code and we can exchange it. Pull out our use statement, our config and redirectory. Still need both of those things. We're going to pull those out of our else here, put them outside of our if else statement. Now our access token gets instantiated with our config, and we're going to get a new token, get token from code, and we're passing in our get code with our redirectory. Then we're going to check if the access token is long-lived, meaning if this token only lasts a few hours, then we want to exchange that short-lived token for a long-lived token. And we do that by saying get long-lived access token, and we pass in our new access token. So let's test this out and print out our token. Back here on our IG test, we don't have any code coming through, so we're going to log in with Facebook. We're going to click that, and it redirected us back automatically because we've already authorized the app, and we have our code, which has been exchanged for an access token. I'm going to copy this access token, save it in a variable, and we're going to use this for our debug and our permissions endpoints. Now that we have our access token from our code, the next section is debugging the access token. So we're going to copy this little snippet right here. So here we have the access token we just got from logging in with our test user that we set up over here in our dashboard, just in test. Now, under the roles section, you'll see I'm an administrator here on the app. So an administrator or a developer, you just need to do the same process and get another access token, and that's what this access token is right here. Then we instantiate our access token class and we debug it. So let's print this out and get some details on our access token. Refreshing, we see we have debugged our access token. We have the app ID, application, when the data expires, if it's valid, when it was issued, the scope. These are all of the permissions we requested. And then there's the granular scope. And at the bottom, we have a user ID. That is the test user ID. And that should match user ID over here in our test users. Do a quick search for that, and there it is. We've debugged our access token. Now we can look at the access token permissions. This will just give us an array back of all the permissions on the access token and the status of those permissions, if the user accepted them, they declined them. So we're going to copy our snippet here. So here's our user ID, which you just got back. Copy that, paste that right in here. Then we have our access token. Again, this is the user access token for our test user. And then we can print out the array of permissions. Refreshing our page now, the data we get back is just an array of permissions. These are all the permissions that we requested when the user logged in, and then the status of those permissions. So granted, granted, granted. They all have been granted. Now that we can see the permissions, we also have the ability to revoke permissions. Again, we're using the access token. The config is the same, but now we're going to do revoke permissions. We're going to copy these 2 lines, paste them right here. This is the name of the permission you want to revoke. Let's say we want to revoke business management. Copy that and paste that right here. Then we're going to print out the revoke, and this should come back as a success boolean. So it would be 1 if it succeeded and 0 if it didn't. So we're going to refresh our page, and we got a status of 1. We have successfully revoked the business management permission on that access token. And we can verify this by doing a little Control-Z magic and printing out the permissions again. Now, we refresh the page. This is the list of permissions on the access token. And if we scroll down and find business management, and it is no longer granted, you see, because we just revoked that permission. Now, if you want to revoke all the permissions at once, you simply don't pass anything into this function, and it will assume you want to revoke all permissions on the access token. We're going to get rid of that name. We're not specifying any permissions to delete, so it's going to delete all of them. Now, if we refresh our page, we got a status of 1. That means it succeeded. Little Control-Z action again to permissions. All right, so now let's look at the permissions when we hit this endpoint. All the permissions have been revoked successfully, so the access token is no longer valid. And that's how you revoke permissions on an access token. And that's going to wrap up the video on access tokens with the Instagram Graph API PHP SDK. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this helps you out. I know the Instagram Graph API can be confusing. That's why I wrote this PHP SDK. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and let me know what you want to see coded up next. I'll catch you later.